Hello and welcome to Breaking Ground on iPropertyRadio with myself, Carol Tallon, the show where we chat to industry experts to get a view on what's happening on the ground and to learn about new trends emerging within the construction industry. This show was brought to you in partnership with Place Engage, a data-driven platform for more successful public consultation and community engagement for your next development project. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Lorna Hagan, Director at ConstructTuition. Lorna, you're very welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Carol.
Before we start to learn a little bit more about ConstructTuition, congratulations on being named amongst the top 100 influencers in the UK. It's amazing when we see women in construction stepping forward and being recognised for innovating within the industry. It's such a huge celebration for all women in construction and for the construction industry generally. So congratulations and well done on that.
Thank you.
So Lorna, ConstructTuition was established in 2021. You might just tell our audience about what it is that you do and the courses that are on offer.
Absolutely. So yes, you're correct. ConstructTuition, it was established in 2021, and we do sort of two services. So we do training and we also do consultancy. And the training side of the business, very much both sides of the business focus on improving quality within the construction industry, and that's really where my background's from. The training courses, one of the biggest sellers would be the one that we offer for new entrants into the construction industry, and very much it's graduates, apprenticeship, people that are out and working for on-site, so the likes of main contractors, employees. And what we do is we teach them key inspecting skills, so really practical, really useful information that you just don't get from university. So on our concrete course, we teach you how to do slump tests, cube tests, read reinforcement drawings. And like my career, I have spent managing errors and looking at the financial and time impact on them. And I'm using that experience and those skills to really try and reduce the frequency of errors happening on our clients' projects by giving those guys the key skills. An example would be, maybe concrete turns up on the site and it's not the right slump, it's not good enough actually to go in the pour. But a lot of these new entrants wouldn't actually know what to do in that situation. What is the criteria? Should I reject it? Can I keep it? Do I listen to the foreman? Or, those sorts of scenarios. And that's what we teach them. We teach them those. And it has a huge financial potential. You have the likes of the Get It Right initiative there which is some research which came from off a branch of the Institute of Civil Engineers, and they're saying 6% of construction turnover is lost due to errors, and that's the direct cost of errors. And then off the back of that, it can be right up to 21%. But if you look, Carol, a profit margin in construction, you'd be doing well to get 3%. So if you're able to automatically get 6% back by not having those errors in the first place, and you're bumping your profit margin up to 9% and developing your staff while you're doing it to be better engineers, better supervisors, sure, it's a win-win for everyone.
It absolutely is. And look, I love the ethos of improving quality across construction, because improving quality generally leads to efficiencies. You are reducing errors, so therefore improving your margins. It is absolutely a win-win across the board. But maybe let's go back a step. You might just tell us how you came to maybe identify this as a gap in the market. You mentioned there that your career has been spent improving quality in construction and managing errors. What's your own background?
Yeah, so I don't come from a construction family. I very much liked sort of maths and physics. I wanted to have a job outside, and I decided to do civil engineering at university, and that's what I did. I studied civil engineering at the University of Ulster, and I wanted to work on site. So I worked for a main contractor from that, like site engineer, the very roots of it, right up to sort of site manager level. And then I moved into sort of a managing quality role within construction and worked on some great projects. So here in Ireland, you would probably best know the likes of DBFO2, so the Newry bypass back in like sort of 2008, 2010 era. And then I moved over to London. So I worked on Heathrow Terminal 2, a bit on Crossrail, and then moved into the nuclear environment, either decommissioning power stations or building new factories for the nuclear environment, and very much everywhere where quality was really, really important, right up through. So got promotion and promotion. And then my last role before starting this business was head of quality for a large tier one main contractor. And like I was managing maybe 300 million pound of project turnover. So I was able to see across 20 projects where were the errors and what was going on. And that's what drove me to start the business. So I seen where were the errors? Where was the money being spent? Where was it being lost? And how should we best tackle that? That was my role. And I, realized quickly if we trained the right people in the right skills for their role, we could reduce the frequency of those errors. And I ran a pilot. It was really successful. And then I was too busy to do this and tried to outsource it, couldn't outsource it. So I thought, you know what, let's do it yourself. And yeah, that's where the business came from. And I have to say, the company that I work for were fantastic. I told them this is something I really wanted to do, and they're actually now one of my clients. So that's a great relationship to have whenever you leave a company. And yeah, they still take the courses on since.
That's an amazing one. Thank you so much for sharing your journey. I actually think it's so inspiring for people to hear this journey. An awful lot of the work that we do ourselves and with our clients is to try educate people on what a career in construction, in contemporary construction, actually looks like, the types of opportunities and the mobility within the industry. And I think maybe that's something that's not well known, and it's definitely something that's not well communicated at an early stage. So look, and by the way, I know that you're a huge advocate for women in construction, and so even to be able to showcase the path that you've taken to show the wide varieties, not just of roles but of sectors. I wouldn't have thought that going from a commercial or logistics environment into a nuclear environment that would have been. I'm guessing that wasn't a seamless transition.
No, and look, I don't think I've ever built the same project twice in my entire career. And there's always that apprehension and a bit of a fear of the unknown. But that's why you work as part of a team. And very much within this, environment, you have to rely on the competencies of others, and it's a continuing mentoring role as well. So, yeah, as I say, I've went from airport to train to roads to nuclear, and yeah, you never do the same thing twice. And I think that's okay. And I think if anything, it's probably one of the real passions for me and why I actually love the construction industry, because it's not the same. Like and even if I hate to say it, but even if you really hate the project or don't like it, when you're in that project environment, it's going to get built within the next couple of years and you're going to move on. So that's good as well. And maybe, yeah, the ones that are really good, you're going to miss them. But I think it's such a great and a dynamic industry and very much open for everyone. As a woman in construction, it has never got in my way. It has never, been to my detriment. Yes, I've had challenges because of my gender in construction, but it's never got in the way. And I think it's definitely a career that's open for everybody, and that's why I do the advocacy in it. And even whenever I had like my kids, I remember walking around site really pregnant, and people, like, it's great to see there's more and more women coming into construction now, but like 22, 23-year-old girls in that site saying, how are you doing this? How are you managing a family and this career and the whole thing? And my response to them was, look, if you're good at your job, it'll be fine. Don't
Yeah.
worry about it. You don't know what's coming around the corner. Keep going.
Yeah.
If you're good at your job, it'll all work out and it'll be fine. But I think that was even important too, to be waddling around the site, 6 to 8 months pregnant, saying it's entirely, we're all capable of doing this, and it's definitely an industry for everyone.
That's a really powerful message, and I'm really glad you shared that today. Only in the last number of months, I was telling the story of somebody I had interviewed, and she talked about being pregnant on site, and that one of her challenges was that the site team, who mainly men, to be fair, had never seen a pregnant woman on site. So they were overly careful, overly cautious, in a way that she felt it stopped her doing her job. And she was in health and safety and had to inspect places at height. And so she was almost frustrated by their concern, and they thought they were doing the right thing. And so it just, I think it shows not just the need for a little bit of a common sense approach as well, but also actually we need to normalize people at all stages, whether male and female, at all stages of life. So whether it's making compensating for women at who might be experiencing temperature. One of the things we've covered recently as well is around maybe the lack of suitability of PPE gear, for people who are experiencing hormonal thermal flashes, and or for people at menopause or perimenopause stage. And there are so many different humans being human, whether you're male or female, whether you're young, middle-aged or older. There's a set of concerns, there are changes that happen, and on site, I think maybe the human approach at the end of the day, even in an increased digital environment, construction is still a people business. We are still dependent on people on the ground actually getting stuff done, and that means the basics of good communication, good collaboration, again a common sense approach, a courtesy, collegiality, really coming together. And there's no compensation for it. It's great that we have digital tools that make a lot of this easier and streamline it, but we still need people to be human at their core and connect with the people that they're coming into contact with on a day-to-day basis. And I always have a focus on the technology, and every so often I'm reminded that actually we're still dependent on the humans and the human interaction. So I think that's a really powerful reminder for us there. So thank you so much. In terms of the courses that you're offering, because you were coming very strongly from industry, and so despite having come up and trained and graduated through academia, obviously you were coming at identifying the gaps from a very industry based, industry centered approach. In terms of the gaps, where are you seeing those gaps in the industry now? So let's talk about your Into the Construction Industry course. What does that cover? What kind of work do you cover for people, graduates and newcomers?
Yeah, so the courses, as I said, they're very much in around those inspecting skills. So we have one for concrete, one for earthworks, piling, drainage. It's people might not think they're glamorous, but yeah, we're telling you how to put a manhole together. The earthworks one's really interesting. So we do everything from sort of cut fill planning and how to look at productivity, right through to assessing carbon emissions from earthworks operations, and yeah, making sure productivity is out there and it's key, and what your building's going to be built right first time. So the likes of compaction testing, and how actually to read the specifications and things like that. Every job has a different specification, and getting the people familiar with how to read specifications and actually how to understand them and how to apply them out on site is a key part of all of those roles, or of all of those courses. So that's very much involved in that. We also have sort of like a mid-tier course, and that would be for anyone from sort of site engineer to project manager role, and it's around inspection and testing within the construction industry. So it's about how to write an inspection and test plan, and more so this is becoming really front and center, and I can even see it over like the last 10 years of my career. So you have the BKR regulations in the Republic of Ireland, and you're having the new Building Safety Act in England as well, and a lot of the main contractors I work for are working in one of those areas. And that inspection and test plan, it's a bit like a method statement and risk assessment, but it's so a method statement and risk assessment makes sure that the people that are building that house, wall, item are safe while they're doing it. So it thinks about the people and making sure they're safe. The inspection test plan thinks about the product. So it's looking at that reinforced concrete wall that you're building, and it's saying, okay, how have you planned to make sure this is going to be installed correctly? How have you inspected it? And how are you going to test it to make sure it complies with the legislation? So very much that's those contractors' evidence to comply with the likes of BCAR or the Building Safety Act. And that one's becoming more and more popular as well, because people just haven't had to deliver on that before, and now they're being asked for it more and more by clients. Now they're being asked for it more and more by even like their sort of risk and assurance team, to make sure that in 10 years' time, if there's any issues come up, there's evidence and there's information. And similarly, you spoke about digital tools and digital products. It's how do you integrate all of those things together? So very much I'm a digital first approach. And if you can get a machine to do the heavy lifting, let's get the machine to do the heavy lifting. And what we would do is we would help them integrate it with the likes of maybe Procore or Autodesk 360 Field, or any of those sort of applications where you're actually going out there and using an iPad for inspections, but linking all that information back, so there's that traceability in what you build in the future.
I can see absolutely the role for, learning how and where to integrate those digital tools. In recent shows, we've covered a lot about, trying to understand what the tech stack of a contemporary construction contractor looks like, what that might be, how many pieces of technology, where do they all sit, and how do they integrate well together. But when you were talking about the introductory course, I would have perhaps wrongly assumed that what you're describing there is on-the-job training. So does that not work? Back 20 years ago, we used to call that kind of the sitting by Nelly approach. Does that not happen anymore, this on-the-job training? And is that the gap you're filling with that particular introductory course?
It very much is. Like I was lucky enough, I suppose, to graduate in 2004. And I remember whenever I graduated, I had so I was 22. I had like a 24, 26-year-old teaching me the latest, setting out techniques with the latest technology. I also had a 60-year-old guy making me use a tape measure and 3, 4, 5 and everything, and down with technology, and we're not doing it. So I had the benefit of learning both ways, one from like years and years of really good experience, and one from here's the latest tech. And throughout like my career, that was there and it was available right up to that 2008. And then you had the crash of the construction industry, and like a lot of people, they left the construction industry. And I living through it, like I went to Australia, I think like 2008, and came back and actually lived sort of through that. And that raft of people left. So we seen maybe about 5 years later, there was they were missing the 26-year-olds with the latest technology with 3 to 4 years out on site to teach those graduates, and those graduates never got taught. So if anything, it created a shift in the mentoring role within the construction industry because there was such a big loss. And I think that has continued on going forwards. And look, if you ever spend any time on site, you'll see the likes of site managers and project managers, they're all in the office. They've all really busy jobs to do, and there's a lack of availability for them actually to be on site. And I think, the repercussions of that recession are still being felt today. And that's why we're all in for, let's do this, on a one day, a really intensive, but you get a lot of information on that day. And it's also good, I always think, to hear from somebody else outside of the industry. Sometimes, maybe we get a bit of, I don't know, switch off mode if you have the same thing being told to you by the same person all the time. So I think there's a benefit to them as well. Some of the larger companies actually integrate it within a training pathway, which I think is really good. So one company, they are really, focusing on competency improvement within their business. So we have actually included the Institute of Civil Engineering attributes at the end of each course. So we talk about concrete, for example, and then the ICE attribute would be like problem solving. How do you plan to ensure you're doing well? And we talk about how what they've learned that day could help them, fill in their ICE attribute and actually help them towards their chartership application. And very similar with the Chartered Institute of Builders, you could also use that for your chartership application when you're in that mind frame and you have that focus.
I would imagine as well, it's also a safe space for people to ask questions if they're not learning something within their everyday working team, that actually they might feel safer to ask a question that they think they really should know by now.
Exactly, and that's what it's good actually having a room full of young people to do that as well. So, I start every course off with there's no such thing as a stupid question. The stupid thing is not to ask the question, you need to know the answer. And I would say, and very much the exercises we do, we keep it practical and engaging, but we also do it like in a teamwork environment. So if you do not know, ask the person beside you, because in a real life scenario, that's exactly what I would do. I would be like, oh, I don't know this. You know, I don't trust Google. It's not good enough, or YouTube to actually teach you how to civil engineer. But look, you can ask somebody else with more knowledge or specialist in that environment. And very much that's where we are. And even right down to the things like to read a reinforced concrete drawings, not the easiest thing in the world. It looks like a complete different language. And every once in a while, I'm 20 years into it, I pick it up and I go, right, I need to remember how to do this. There's a wee bit of re-education of myself, and I have to take 5 minutes to think about what I'm doing. And like I would ask them, can you read that drawing? And I would say, as a general answer to it, these are apprenticeship level and graduate level, engineers or people that have, studied sort of a construction course. Maybe about 70% of them say no. And like as supervisors out there, they should know how to do these things, and but
Mm.
you just don't get taught to that level in university or in tech, and they don't have the resources. They can't bring you out there, they can't show you an actual piece of reinforcement and explain what means what, and I think that's the real benefit.
Yeah, I think the benefits are very clear. In fact, if anything, you're making me maybe nervous or cautious about maybe what goes unknown on sites, if the team don't feel able to ask questions. One thing I as you're speaking, I'm becoming aware that actually, given that you created the business in 2021 based on maybe the gaps that you would have observed throughout your career. Now that you're actually delivering training, and so you're learning from the next generation coming in and from the clients now who are requesting these courses. Are you identifying further gaps? Is this leading to maybe courses that you might not have envisaged in 2021?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's more courses, and clients will come to me and say, this is where we're having a problem. We're having a problem with this. We're losing money in this. We keep speaking to our staff or our team, and we just can't get it right, and we just can't, look at, get past this. And very much so we've been, building out either bespoke courses for them based on that's their issue, or adding to courses, going on in the future. And very much so what I didn't want, and it was a fear of mine, that taking a step out of industry, how am I going to keep this information relevant and up to date and good going forwards? And that's actually where the business works out really well with the training and consultancy side. So even on the consultancy side, sometimes I'll work as a clerk of works. So for client side, and I'll actually go out there and do some inspecting, and I can see, the latest that's going on, and the mistakes that are continuing to happen. And I also work as a Building a Safer Future assessor, and also a Code for Construction Product Index verifier. So they're a bit of a mouthful, but the BSF is all about cultural maturity with regards to the Building Safety Act. Um, Over in the UK, and it's backed by Dame Judith Hackett. So it's very much keeping me at front of changes within that Building Safety Act environment and how that's working. And CCPI is Code for Construction Product Index. So that's very much more around manufacturers of construction products and making sure that the information they release is accurate, up to date, always accessible. Same thing, it's came off the back of the Building Safety Act, but it's making sure that people that are buying construction products understand what they're buying, and that the literature and information isn't misleading with regard to construction products. So I think they're really good because they are different. They, give me good knowledge and a good insight into the sector and where the sector's moving and going forwards.
And I suppose that's definitely a question I have before we finish up today. How are your clients? What are your clients' sentiments towards construction over the next kind of 18 to 24 months? Because it has been a particularly challenging few years.
It has, and look, you see the figures and you can see the amount of companies going out of business, and it is incredibly sad. And I think a lot of people are taking stock at the moment and they are absolutely risk averse. And look, in the last year, if you had been operating in the black at all, you were doing well. So if you were breaking even, you were doing well rather than, recording a loss. So look, some of them I think have been more cautious, but they're very much have been looking at their books and saying, right, where can we tighten up here? Where can we actually operate more efficiently? And where are these losses happening? And I love to see that coming forwards whenever they go to have that review. And I think the ones that invest in training are investing in a return on that in the next 6 months, in the next 12 months, in the hope that they can improve their profit margins that way and actually have more efficient staff, and as I say, less errors in that point. But yeah, I think the market, it's going to change, and I think they're also more open to bringing in specialists because they're all dealing with a lot at the moment, and I understand that. So there's the requirements for sustainability reporting, net carbon zero. There's the whole, movement and equality, diversity and inclusion. There's this push on quality in construction as well. So they're dealing with a lot, and I think a lot of them have realised, look, if we can bring in sector expertise in these individual areas to help us, review our strategy and figure out the best way forwards, then I think they're really benefiting from that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose finally, what can we expect to see from ConstructTuition in 2024?
So we're going to go global. No, I would just be really happy with continued growth. We've been growing year on year, and yeah, a few more staff coming on board. And what we would like to do is certainly help more main contractors within Ireland and the UK move, increase quality within their business, and whether that's sort of systems and improvements that way, or better people trained out on site. But yeah, watch this space because we've got lots of plans coming for 2024, and as I say, we're always open for companies, to get in touch and see how we can work together and collaborate on really benefiting their business.
That's super. And I think improving quality in construction is something we can all get behind. So thank you, and continued success with ConstructTuition. That was Lorna Hagan, Director of ConstructTuition. My thanks today to show producer Katie Tallon and to the production team at Hear Me Roar Media. Also, thank you to Place Engage for making these conversations possible. And thank you indeed for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next episode of Breaking Ground. In the meantime, please be sure to subscribe and check out all of the other Irish and international real estate and construction shows on iPropertyRadio.